Hello, hello, beautiful people. So today I'm going to be making some veggie chili. Yes. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and rinse and strain my quinoa. And this is about a cup of quinoa. Put it in the strainer. Now, some people like to let this sit and soak. I don't know the chemical or the element that soaking takes off of quinoa, but I know that it's something that some people are intolerant to. So I'm just gonna just rinse mine and just let it sit while I'm getting the rest of the veggies ready. I'm gonna get these nice and brown. So my onions and peppers have softened and browned a bit. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and add in my canned veggies. Have carrots, diced tomatoes. These are seasoned. You can add whatever you want. I'm debating putting a can of chickpeas in here because my guys hate chickpeas, but if it's mixed in something else, sometimes that's the only way I can get them to eat it, and we need that protein since we're not having any meat. So I did decide to add chickpeas. So what I'm just going to do is pour off the liquid. And you know, you can use your liquid as a substitute for eggs. So if I make a dessert, I'll use this instead of eggs. I dropped a few in there, but I'll get them out. So I'm just going to add these chickpeas in here as well. So now I have everything in, and I'm just going to add a packet of chili powder and seasoning. You can add 2 if you like a good bit of seasoning. And there you go. All of your ingredients or whatever you want in your chili, you can add whatever vegetable. You can add corn. I typically would add corn, but my son is not a fan of whole kernel corn, so I will not be adding that. But you can see it already has your chili look. It has your beans, your texture. Now what I am going to do now is add some water. I'm going to add in some water. This is a little bit, but I am probably going to need a whole lot more water than this, at least another half a bottle. But this is just going to be for when I add in my quinoa. So right now I'm going to I've already washed and strained my quinoa. I'm just going to put that in there as a good filler and some more proteins and minerals. And I'm just going to let that cook. Now quinoa probably takes about 15 to 20 minutes to cook. So, you know, once that's been in here, is boiled for about, 8 to 10 minutes or so, I can turn it down and just let it simmer. And then our veggie chili will be done. So I'm just gonna let that go. You can see it's already starting to simmer. I'm gonna cover it and come back when the quinoa is nice and softened and the chili is done. Now typically what I do is with chili is I add salsa, because the salsa has all of the the peppers, the seasoning, the tomato, and everything that you need in it when you're making a chili. But since I'm adding the can of tomato and the chili powder, I'm not using or the chili pack of seasoning, I'm not using the salsa today. So this is still going to turn out really well. It's a nice quick meal. If you're in a rush, if you haven't prepared anything for dinner, this is something you and your family will love. It's nice, it's warm for the winter, and it's quick. It's healthy. You can make some cornbread with this. You can make a side of fruit, some sweet potatoes, or whatever it is you want on the side. But this is really quick fix. Doesn't take long at all. Very few ingredients. And if you prefer fresh, you can use fresh. It still will take the same amount of time. Not very much prep time. So there you go. So I did decide to make some bread, and what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to butter my pan. I'm going to get some butter so we don't have any sticking going on. actually what I'm going to do is go ahead and just put some butter in here to actually go in the bread as well. So I'm just going to put it in here. And this is going to be some vegan bread. So this is Earth Balance non-GMO vegan butter. And I'm just going to set this in my preheated oven so that the butter can melt down and I can add it into my mixture. So these are pretty much all of the ingredients I'm going to be using for this recipe. This is going to be all by, you know, just off the rip. I did this before and I added some fresh blueberries, walnuts, and pecans, but today this is just going to be a simple banana bread. I don't think I'm adding any nuts to this today. Well, I won't be. So yeah, 1 banana smashed, some butter, of course, vanilla extract, some all-purpose flour, a little pinch of salt, and some cinnamon. And this is my aquafaba that I use from that I got from off of my can of chickpeas that I added into the chili. And I'm going to go ahead and add the aquafaba. I'm not adding the whole thing. I'm just going to add about 2 tablespoons or so, because that would be about the amount 1 egg would be. Okay, and since I'm not using the egg, I'm using the aquafaba and some spring water, and then we're going to go from there. Or I may add in some milk. I'm probably going to add in a little bit of oat milk. Yeah, so I'm gonna add in oat milk. And like I said, this is kind of an experiment. This is going off the top of my head, and we're going to see how this turns out. So 1.5 cups of flour, some salt, some baking powder. Now this is probably about 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. Okay. Then we have some vanilla extract, and we have our cinnamon. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and add in some oat milk. Now I have my banana in there, and I probably should have done this before I actually put the other ingredients in, but anyway, I'm just going to kind of just smash this banana up so that it can distribute in the mixture really well for me. And I can already smell it. This banana is nice and ripe, so it's going to be perfect. Get a nice consistency. This is looking good already. I'm just going to add a dash more milk. And yes, I should be mixing this with a spoon. I am rushing. And the last thing I'm going to do is go ahead and add the butter in. Okay. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit more flour, like 1/2 cup more flour. Dash more salt. A little bit of everything. Some vanilla. Some cinnamon. A little bit more milk. And our butter is nice and melted, so I'm just going to get that around the pan so that oils the pan really well. And go ahead and add that in the mixture. Give that a good mix. And one thing that I forgot that I am going to add in, or we would have a huge problem, is some sugar. So we don't use white sugar in this house. I do have some brown sugar, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in some brown sugar after I get most of the lumps, humps, and bumps out of this. And you can see the consistency already. I'm not really concerned about the lumps and bumps, about it being flour, because I do know that I have a smashed banana in here, so it's going to be some lumps in there. But as long as I'm mixing and I got my bottom mixed, everything's getting touched at the bottom, that I'm not having clumps of flour everywhere, I'll be fine. So you want to look at your consistency when you are doing a scratch made bake, you know. Look at your consistency. You don't want it too runny and you don't want it too stiff to dry out and be dry. So I have everything in there, and I'm just going to get some brown sugar. I'm going to get some brown sugar out of here. I keep my brown sugar in a Ziploc bag because the brown sugar bag that they come in is not it at all. So I'm just going to take about a handful of brown sugar, and then I'm going to go in and get one more handful of brown sugar because we all know that sugar bakes. It's going to bake out. All right. Get that. And we already have the salt in there, remember, to balance this out, so it's not going to be all sweet. It's still going to have that salt in there, give it a nice contrast. Okay, so now I'm just going to pour my banana mixture batter inside of my container. And I'm going to put this in the oven on 360 for about 30 minutes and see how that goes. Okay. So that looks good. I don't see any white lumps. I'm just going to set that in the oven, 350 for, like I said, about 30 minutes. Going to check it, and then we are going to go from there. For my extra aquafaba, I'm just going to get the mason jar lid, okay, and I'm just going to store this. I'm only going to keep this in here about a week. If I do not use this after a week, to be honest with you, I'm going to throw this out. So everything's done. Here's our bread. And dinner is done. Bon appetit.